have a trifold that is designed to sort of explain to a homeless person how they could overcome the technological hurdle, why it might be valuable to them to adopt Bitcoin as opposed to the dollar. This is all true. Our Hoodie the Homeless campaign is about using Bitcoin to put hoodies on homeless people. Sean's Outpost does this better than us. It's just a fact. They feed more people, they clothe more people, they move more Bitcoin in the charity space. They're better at this than us. We're an ideological bulwark. We go to Bitcoin events and we hold the free market anarchist ideological position so that that position cannot be forced out of the conversation. And that's true, that's something that we do. We have a blog, we get up here and we say regulation is bad, we say the free market is good, we say we want the liberty position every issue every time. Antiwar.com does this better than us. They just do, it's a fact. They have a better blog, they have a better research team, they also adopt Bitcoin, they have stories on Bitcoin, they do this better than us. So what does Bitcoin.bombs do better than anyone else? Branding! I've been told at these events over and over again that we have the best brand in Bitcoin. And it's really just a name in a plane. I mean, that's what it is. So if you look over here, you can see that was, we started out as a campaign drive for antiwar.com before we were an independent organization. You can see the white plane over there, that was just a web graphic. By BitCon 2013, we had these shirts where we sort of made it into a screen print shirt. Incidentally, BitCon 2013, most people know that as Bitcoin 2013, the future of payments, which from a branding perspective is a terrible name. People need to adopt the name BitCon so they can get in on the Comic-Con crowd. Hoodie the Homeless 2013, we had the black plane with the orange ring. Hoodie the Homeless 2014, we're going to be printing the same plane with a white ring. The logo changes a little bit every time, so you can tell the year. There's a sort of like numismatic value to our t-shirts because you can tell which campaign they came from based on the logos, slight differences, but essentially we're branding this image. So why is this image popular, or why is this image powerful as an image? Why is it visually appealing? The answer is the golden ratio. How many people have heard of the golden ratio? All right, excellent, I'm glad. I mean, this is very fabulous. So essentially the golden ratio is, it's the rectangle by which you can cut off a perfect square and be left with a rectangle by the same ratio. And this pattern occurs in nature all over the place. It occurs in seashells, anywhere you see a spiral, like I've heard people say that the ratio of the bones and the digits of your fingers matches this ratio. So essentially if you look at our logo, you have the circle of the plane itself, and then the next increment of that ratio is the large coin, and then down. So each one of those coins represents one circle from the golden ratio pattern. And for some reason, in the human brain, this is very appealing. Another place you see the golden ratio commonly is the Apple logo. So this is probably the most iconic, recognizable brand in the world. It's one of the largest companies in the world. It's a technological company, and they obviously put some thought into their logo. Now if you go into Google and you just Google the phrase, any company you want, golden ratio, you'll find an analysis of that logo from the perspective of this pattern. And you'll find it for Twitter, you'll find it for YouTube, like pretty much anything that is iconic, for some reason, it follows these rules. And even though you may not know it mathematically, you'll get it intuitively. Do you have a question?
Yeah, do they follow the rules by design? In other words, when they designed their logo, they said it has to do with the...
Sometimes. I think Apple did it on purpose. It's in one of their branding portfolios, okay. So I think they did it on purpose. But people do this intuitively. It's sort of like you can catch a baseball without understanding physics, right? Like it's just something you just do, and then if you were to study physics, you would then have a deeper understanding of the trajectory and the gravity and the force and mass and all that jazz. But essentially, this is for some reason appealing to the human eye, if that makes sense. So I want to play a game with you guys. We're going to test the strength of some brands. So I'm going to show you the first letter of the name of the company and just shout it out. What company is it from?
McDonald's.
Very good. Google. Okay.
I can see it on the screen.
Starbucks. Now this one's fascinating because what people don't know about this one is this is the whole logo. The Starbucks logo doesn't contain the word Starbucks anymore. It used to. It used to be Starbucks coffee, and then before that there was this sort of old logo when they were still in Seattle. And they have progressively reduced the complexity of their logo. And this design is very intentional. Starbucks has one of the most interesting history of logos in the world. So they started out, actually they were originally called Pequod. I don't know if you guys know that. They were originally called Pequod Coffee, and then somebody pointed out from a marketing perspective, nobody wants to buy a cup of Pequod. What Pequod is the name of Ahab's boat in Moby Dick. It's the name of the ship that chases the white whale. And so they said, we want to stick with this theme, we're from a whaling town, we want stuff that references Moby Dick. Well, Starbuck is Ahab's first mate. He's the guy who wanted to murder the captain for ignoring obvious avenues of profit. So obviously you can see that the mission statement of the company is contained in the name. Also, the woman is a siren, which is kind of interesting. It's, in Greek mythology, the siren is this woman who sings these beautiful songs, and then you come in and you crash on the rocks and die. So you can obviously see that the mission of the company is contained within the logo. You also see the emergence of the golden ratio happening. It's very subtle in this logo, but the way in which those smaller circles contained within the larger circles contain that it follows that ratio too. Although I don't have a graphic for that. Whoa, louder all of a sudden. But I want to point out, most importantly about this, is that they're moving away from the text of the logo. The image itself becomes the brand, and we all knew this is Starbucks because of the siren. Oh no! This is a strong brand. What we all need is a strong brand. For those that don't know, this is Russell Brand, Arnold Schwarzenegger's body, which is a powerful image that contains its whatever. So we're gonna keep playing this game, but we're gonna do it with some Bitcoin companies. So I'm gonna show you the first symbol or letter of a logo, and you guys tell me if you can tell what company it's from. Anybody? Bueller. Will's got it. It's Multibit. Now this is a very popular company. People know what Multibit is, right? Like it's it's been around for a while. It's a popular wallet. This contains no useful information whatsoever. It's actually less appealing than the image search because the image search would have been yellow or orange. There's another problem here is it's low resolution. We're going to talk about resolution a little bit later, but I just want to point that out. I mean, it contains nothing. It's not an interesting font. It's not an interesting color. It's whatever. Let's move on. Anyone? Coinbase. This is actually pretty good. It's a pretty good. They put some money into this design. I think it's good. What I want to talk about this is the color, blue and gray. And we'll talk about color a little bit later, but just keep that in mind when we talk about blue and gray. What about this one? You guys are good. This one actually I really like. Blue and orange, much more powerful than blue and gray. Also there's obviously some attention to font. Also the image contains the concept, right? Because that one triangle under the circle, that alone, that triangle contains maps, right? I mean, that's the shape of the little blob that shows up on a Google map, and we know that. We've learned that symbol, and so this actually, there's some good intuitive design going with this one. What about this? Anyone? You've probably heard of it. RoboCoin. Yeah, these guys claim to have the first Bitcoin ATM. I actually dispute that. We'll talk about that in a second. Same problem with resolution. I couldn't get a high resolution image of their logo, so they're missing out on having an attractive logo on this screen right now. This doesn't tell you anything. It's not an interesting font. It's not an interesting image. It's blue and gray. Let's move on. What about this one? Lamasu. These are the guys I actually credit with the first Bitcoin ATM. And you can see that it's still blue and gray, and maybe I'll email them about that. But it does look green up there, but it is blue. I think it might be a color filter in the screen. But anyway, they put some thought into it, right? Like, it's a distinctive font, it's a distinctive image. Maybe they haven't spent as much time doing outreach, so people don't recognize it, but it's obvious there's some design elements here. So I want to talk about the problems. The problems are people's logos are low resolution, they're using bad colors, they're using derivative concepts, and they're using confusing designs. And I'm going to go through each four of these. So let's start with low resolution. Typically, when I take on a new client, they send me something like this. This this off the, sorry, Tim.
No, it's fine.
Let me blow that up for you. There it is.
Happening.
You can see, I'm picking on Tim a little bit. The files he sent me weren't this blurry, but a lot of times clients send me what is essentially the icon from the top of their website, and they don't realize that you can't blow that up. Like, just because it's clear on your screen, it doesn't mean that it works on a poster. So I did some logo work for Tim, and we came up with this, which is brighter, it's sharper, it's, you know, we can blow it up, and I want to talk a little bit about why this works more than the other one. And if you're developing a logo, you should do this first. The difference between vector art and raster art. This is so important. A lot of people, they sort of put together a logo in Photoshop, it's small, it's clear, it works on their website, and then when they try to scale, it doesn't work. So what you need to do is you need to start with vector art. Because it's very easy to go from vector art to raster art. It's very easy to go from vector art to raster art, and it's very difficult to go from raster art to vector art. And what these are essentially is, raster art is building an image out of pixels. It's what everything on the internet is. When you download an image from the internet, it's going to be raster art. That's how our browsers work. Vector art is the data containing the line of the art itself. Not built out of pictures, but built out of line information. And what's important about that is, you could take what was the logo at the top of your website, and if you have the original vector file, you can blow it up and project it on a billboard. Because it contains the line information and not the block information, it can scale forever. And that's just important. If you ever want your logo to get bigger, I know you all want your logo to get bigger, this is where you need to start, and it's easier if you start at the ground level. The other reason vector art is important is because when you're doing t-shirts, when you're doing pens, when you're doing business cards, when you're doing any sort of promotional material whatsoever, the company is going to prefer vector art because it's going to print clearer for them, and you're going to be happier with the product at the end. When you see pixelization in printing, it's because somebody took a raster image and they blew it up bigger than its resolution. So, very important to branding. The other thing is, when it's pixelated, it looks unprofessional, and that harms your brand, right? So you want things to be crisp and clear and sharp, etc. Now I want to talk about this. Have you guys seen this brochure? This is, what is it? Bitcoin Bigfoot. And it's a great brochure. It contains a lot of really good information, and it's a lot of sort of beginner's guide to whatever, and I'm sorry to pick on them. But you can't do this with your logo. Like, I get that orange is the color of Bitcoin, but it's not the color of all of these companies, right? Your color is an important part of your logo. It's an important part of your brand identity. So I want to talk a little bit about color. Familiarize yourself with the Pantone matching system. This is essentially your periodic table of colors. Every color has a PMS color. I'm sorry for the alliteration. Or the, but the point is that if you know the PMS color of your color, you can convert it to CMYK, you can convert it to RGB, you can convert it to, like, the conversions are all known for this. And by having a consistent color, your brand is always going to be the same orange, or the same color. For example, in this case, the Bitcoin orange color is PMS 21. So if you want to match that logo, that's the color you need. If you want to go to a screen printer and say, hey, I need a specific color, you need to be able to give them this number, if that makes sense. Yeah, you have a question?
How did that actually get determined? How far back can you go to say, like...
I don't know. Pantone is a company.
I'm old and it's been around for 20 years.
Standard in printing.
At least 20 years I've been in the business.
That Bitcoin is the point.
Oh,
Oh, that is the Bitcoin orange? I don't know. It's been that as long as I've been in Bitcoin.
21 million. It's on that Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's on the original Satoshi client.
0 to 1. So that's what it is.
That must have been on purpose. I'll bet it's on purpose. So the point is that you want to be specific about your color because your color actually communicates something very important. For example, if you're into branding, I want you guys to go to symbolism.com with a C. This is a really interesting experiment. What they're doing is they're associating colors with words. It's an ongoing survey. Users go there, they say what words are associated with what colors, and how often is that answer given, and what are the associations with those colors. So Bitcoin, for example, friendly, cheerful, confident. Those are the largest answers for orange. That's pretty good when you're talking about a thing you want to adopt. I want to talk a little bit about color theory. That's what's going on. Over here on the left, you can pick associated colors, which is like multiple colors in the same spectrum, like if you're going to put a gradient in your logo or something like that. That's a nice kind of one-color logo. If you're going to do a two-color logo, which is what I recommend because it makes screen printing easier later, you want to go opposites, right, of this sort of wheel. So orange, the opposite of orange is blue. This is why intuitively, if you look, most Bitcoin companies use orange and blue. People just like to get this, like catching a baseball. If you want to go a three-color logo, which I don't recommend because it makes things complicated, but you can, orange, purple, and green are the sort of triad effect. You want to sort of separate your colors as much as possible because it creates the most sort of sense of a full spectrum. You don't have to start with orange, it just happens that Bitcoin is already associated with orange. I kind of feel like we're saturating that now. Intuitively, what people have done, and I think that this is sort of detrimental, is they've gone, okay, the opposite of orange is blue. I want blue. Blue is my logo. It rhymes with orange. Then they go, what goes with blue? Gray. And so the second most common color scheme we find in Bitcoin branding is blue and gray. Now what are the associations? Trust, dependable, strength. The blue is associated with trust, dependability, and strength. That's good. Gray is associated with balance, neutrality, and calm. If you mix all those words together, what I get is boring.
Yeah.
So a lot of Bitcoin companies have boring branding, and that's just a fact. So I think there needs to be more diversity in the space. We need more companies with yellows and purples. We need more companies with greens and reds. We need to sort of break out of orange and blue, and especially break out of blue and gray, because it's boring. And as a result, people just aren't interested. I mean, blue and gray is the kind of thing that you want from like a tombstone manufacturing company. It's not something you want from an exciting, disruptive technology. So the mission statement of symbolism.com is quantifying the association between colors and words, making it simple to choose the best colors for the desired emotional effect. And if you think marketing people don't use this, you're crazy. I mean, like, you look at some of these, like, associations, like McDonald's optimism. I mean, is that not loving it? I mean, like, they do this stuff on purpose. Do you have a question, Christian?
Quick question, because in the slide, what do you make of the outliers there, which are pretty significant?
Oh, you know what? They say that for people that want, that if you want more than this, like, primary color, like NBC, I don't know how well you guys can see this, but you have Google, eBay, NBC, companies that use a full spectrum of color, they say that it's like a diversity or something. But symbolism doesn't do that. Symbolism is just surveying one color at a time. So you kind of need to like pick your primary color and then sort of visually pick a secondary color if you want that sort of thing. Yeah?
Can we hold questions to the end? We got a mic.
Yeah, no problem. Derivative concepts. Who can guess which Bitcoin company I'm about to talk about?
BitPay.
Very good! BitPay has a name derived from PayPal. They have a color scheme derived from PayPal. I don't know if you guys do outreach, but when I talk to people about BitPay, it is impossible to say anything except PayPal for Bitcoin. It's the same service. It's the same company. And there's a problem with that. There's a problem with having derivative concepts as your brand. It means you can't outgrow your parent company. It means that if PayPal takes Bitcoin, BitPay is in trouble, right? And so you're essentially putting yourself in a small sandbox using derivative concepts. Now, a lot of Bitcoin companies do this. For example, BitMint is eBay. It just is. Look at the logo. Bitcoin Starter is Kickstarter. Just is. Look at the logo. Bitcoin Not Bombs is Food Not Bombs. I admit it. We do this. I'm hoping we can overcome it, or maybe we'll become obsolete before it's a problem. But, so there's a couple of problems here. One that's related to echoing the other company is that putting bit or coin in your name is going to become obsolete. Yes. Like, a lot of people, when they're contemplating what they want their Bitcoin project to be, they think of an existing product and they add bit to it. So, I mean, there are not very many companies that take an existing concept and then add dollar to it. There's the dollar store. There's, so it's a low ambition. It's like maybe it's a necessary evil at the beginning of the adoption of a new technology, but at some point it's going to be redundant and it's going to make it seem like you're like a second-tier economic actor. You're not a primary company, you're a secondary company just echoing the larger company you can't outgrow. So at some point, you need to change your name and you need to change your concept. And so I want to talk about a success case. Cash into Bitcoins has this problem that they echo check into cash, or gold into cash, or cash into gold. There are these various sort of companies, and their name sounds like that. And it was good at the beginning because it was very obvious. What do? We turn cash into coins. Very simple. They're an outfit that lets you deposit dollars into their bank account, and then they send you Bitcoin. It's a very simple and effective way to purchase Bitcoin. But they had a branding problem. The branding problem is that they're associated, just because they echo the name, with check into cash and cash into gold, or gold into cash, whatever. The point is that those companies have a reputation for being sort of lower income, being sort of economic desperation, being sort of like, they're like loan shark companies, right? And that's not the reputation you want to adopt by deriving your name from them. So they changed their name to ExpressCoin. And if you go to their website, they have a whole blog post about what this logo means, why they made these decisions, what this symbol means. And I mean, I don't know that it actually does accomplish what they say that it does, but at the very least, it shows that they put some thought into it. It shows that they're being unique and authentic, and they're not being derivative. They're saying we have our own vision for our own company, and that's what everyone needs to have. So now I want to talk a little bit about confusion. Cash into coins does it here, but I'm going to give you some better examples. Sorry, Stephanie. You can't use the Bitcoin B as the O in coins. It's just confusing. Like if you I get it, it's a circle, but to the layman who doesn't know what you're talking about, they can't read that. So people need to stop doing this. This is, I think, the most exceptionally confusing logo in Bitcoin, because it actually says confusing to most people. It's good, I like the font, but what is that? The thing above the O and the C, I think it's supposed to be like a chain link, like blockchain. Sorry, Andreas. It's all out of love. I'm not, like, this is a little bit of a roast, but I support all these companies. I think they're good. This is a healing hospital. This is a teaching hospital. The Rubik's Cube is a terrible logo. It says, I can't figure this out. Right? I mean, like, unless you're that sort of type A personality that could figure it out, and then you're like, yeah! And that's for you, and this was for you, when this was their logo. But I want to award blockchain most improved player in Bitcoin, because check out their new logo. This is phenomenal, because it contains the Bitcoin B, but it is not an orange circle with a B, right? It contains blocks, and it's this thing emerging from blocks. It says spontaneous order. It says, in pixelization, it says digital, it says high tech. I mean, this is a phenomenal logo, and it's a phenomenal change to go from something that's so confusing and difficult to understand to something that is so simple. It's elegant even. And best of all, it doesn't contain the word bit, and it doesn't contain the word coin. Right? So if Bitcoin goes belly up and we start using Namecoin or Peercoin or whatever, anything based on the blockchain technology, they've got the best URL in the space. You know what I mean? Like they have a lot of room to shift around if they need to change their mission statement. So this is, most improved brand. I'm going to give it to blockchain.info and blockchain.com. Now I want to scare you all a little bit by showing you the face of your competitors. Do you guys know what this is? This is a 96-page brand guideline booklet. Every major company out there publishes these, and they give them to designers when they if I were hired to do a business card for Visa, I would have to know and be familiar with this 96-page document. Okay. I know that Pepsi recently released one because of their weird new logo. Visa, the only thing that actually changed, the reason that necessitated this republishing of this old book, was they took the little yellow triangle off the top of the Visa logo. That's all that changed. But it contains mission statements, it contains, let's just go through it. It contains every way not to use the logo. And this is just the first page of a chapter. There's a whole chapter on how not to use the logo. Don't stretch it, don't put it on a different background, don't change the color, don't change the font, don't put it on a confusing background. Come on, color. Look at that. They gave me all their PMS colors. They not only gave me all their PMS colors for their logo, they gave me all their PMS colors for the background colors. If I want to put a blend or a square or a bullet or if I put anything in their document, anything in a Visa-related document has to be one of these colors. I don't know why gray is there. And they gave me font guidelines. There are only certain fonts that can appear with Visa. I apparently didn't have them because it converted everything to Arial. But the point is that they put a tremendous amount of thought into like every little thing about the visual presentation of their brand. And as a designer, I want that. Like, as much as I hate the idea that there's 96 pages of this, like, that answers all my questions, which means that it removes at least 4 or 5 emails that I have to have with somebody in the marketing department. So, in conclusion, although not quite done yet, your brand is your identity. Like,
Big cow.
yeah, big cow. So there's the thing, brand. I mean, this is interesting. Like, the word brand comes from the notion of branding a cow, right? And it even comes from a Norse word which means fire, which is why it was used as the term for branding a cow. And so like really, like what is branding a cow? I mean, it's kind of like claiming it, it's a property right thing, but really it's about identifying it. That's my cow, it's not your cow, right? So it has to be a distinguishing enough mark that it's simple, that it can be made out of metal, that it can be pressed into something, but also it's not so similar you can't distinguish it from your neighbor's ranch. And so a big part of branding is distinguishing yourself. So they call brands an intangible asset. And that's because it can't really be quantified. These companies, like Visa, probably spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on that booklet, right? And they have no way of measuring whether or not that was worth the money. It's not like something tangible. It's not like advertising equals increased revenue. It's not even really yours. Like, here's the thing, your brand, it kind of belongs to everyone because it's destroyed in the minds of other people, right? Like, for some people, Disney is a brand, and they come out here and they scream and they're excited and whatever. For a lot of people who I've been talking to at this conference, Disney has this like creepy fascist kind of a brand,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's intangible. Disney cannot force you to change your opinion. A brand is also everything we do. And this is why, like, I realize I focused mainly on design because I'm a designer, but really it is everything that you do. It is your reputation, which means that if you as a company, I don't know, like don't deliver your product, then that brand is destroyed. If you know, like we deliver hoodies to homeless people, that's part of our brand. That's almost becoming our mission statement at this point. But it is everything that you do because everything that you do that has your name attached to it, it like flows back the other way. People make that association. Your brand is your relationship with your customer. And really this is why it's important to build a strong brand. Because by building a strong brand, you build a strong relationship with your customer. Whatever your customer is, even if it's a client, even if it's subsidiary companies, whatever. The point is that the amount that you distinguish yourself from your competitors in the mind of your customers, that's your brand. If you're not distinguishing yourself, you're not forming a relationship. You're just like another person on the subway. So the way to build a good brand is to be meaningfully different. That doesn't just mean unique for a unique sake. It means that the differences between you and your competitors have to be meaningful, either to you or to your customer. They have to be things that are that they contain your mission, they contain your vision of your company, and it's what makes you different from other people. You want to have a purpose that other people can adopt, and this is kind of why I always like going back to the cow, because there is a sense in which when you have a strong brand, people are proud to wear it. I mean, like cows would be lining up to get themselves branded if you have a strong brand. And I don't want to talk about people in the form of cattle, but I want to talk about them as they want to adopt your brand identity sometimes, like Nike, phenomenal logo. It doesn't say anything, it's just a swoosh, right? It's not even pronounced correctly. Like Nike is actually Nike, which is this Greek, very fast deity. I think it's a deity. Doesn't mean no. Brian seems like you might know this. Nike?
Yeah.
Okay.
It means winning in Greek.
There you go. Thank you. Andreas, Greek. Phenomenal. The point is that if you have a strong enough brand, you get people who are proud to wear it. You get people who tattoo McDonald's logos on themselves. Like, why in the world would they do that? But they do. They put cows behind them to brand themselves. So the point is that some brands actually communicate the mission of a company so effectively that people want to adopt it. For example, BitPay, they've been playing with the slogan, decentralize all the things. I love that slogan. I don't think BitPay exemplifies that slogan, but I do love that slogan, and I would wear that.
Say it again, say it again.
People can smell inauthenticity. They can tell if you're faking it. And so when you're talking about your brand, when you're associating with your customers, when you're deciding on your mission statement, don't sound like it's from a textbook. Don't sound like it's from a marketing manual. Make it be something from the heart. When you describe your brand and you sort of decide on the identity of your company, make it an extension of yourself as much as possible. Because that is not only going to communicate to the people who learn what your brand means as they interact with you, it's also going to keep your authenticity, your heart, your mission, your personal purpose in life involved in the projects that you work on. So that's been Branding Bad. I'm Davi Barker from Bitcoin Up Bombs, and I think we're ready for questions. Brian?
Yeah, I guess a twofold question. The first one is that pretty much whether a company is an actual app business or not, it seems like they have to have an app today for iOS or Android or whatever. Do you have suggestions for how to allow a logo to work well? I think that's what happened with blockchain, is they needed to figure out a good way to make it look good as an app, because it's just this little dot. Do you have any suggestions for that? And then the other thing is, do you have any suggestions for, I see even with Bitcoin companies, which I agree with, it's a revolutionary technology, they should be doing something not different for different sake, but they still do these ridiculous corporate jingle videos that are just mind-boggling to me.
It lacks authenticity.
Yeah, it really does, and it's a pure copycat. I know you talked about differentiation, but I mean, like, in what ways, in both of those aspects, do you think that Bitcoin companies could do so?
Let me see if I can get back to the Visa thing. You know what? I don't think I have that page. One of the things that are in these big marketing packets, and if anybody wants it, I have it on my USB. If you want to sift through the 96-page Visa branding guidelines booklet, there's a lot to learn from like any one of these companies. They all put them out. There's a lot to learn from them. But one of the things that they have is alternative logos, because in a lot of marketing material, you'll have a one-color print. And so the question is, how do you translate a two-color logo to a one-color print? And that is often a simplified form, which is good for this sort of thing. Although with the app icon, the question becomes resolution. And so, I don't have a slide, but we have one. Bitcoin Not Bombs has one, and it's the plain silhouette with a Bitcoin B on it, right? So you take out the coins, take out the circle, it's just a silhouette and a B. And so there's ways that you can reinforce the branding of the shape by itself, right? Like the Apple logo is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Like and so by associating the words with the shape and then removing the words once it's a successful brand. And the other thing is you don't even really have to wait to become a successful brand, because like in an app store, the name of the app is there, right?
Not on the home screen, it's not.
No, it's not on the home screen. But the point is that they'll learn it. Like what I'm suggesting is that customers learn these associations. You don't have to wait for them to learn it before you implement it. You can just implement it. It's kind of like faking it until you make it. So I guess what I would say is to choose a simplified shape and then incorporate that into your branding and everything else you do when it doesn't need to be simplified, so that that association exists. What was the second question?
Corporate videos?
I haven't seen these corporate videos. They sound terrible.
Music in the background.
Yeah, and like,
I voice
I see them all the time.
animation.
So what was the question about the videos?
Well, is there what is, I guess it makes it seem like they're not following that differentiation. The companies aren't following the differentiation, like you said, with BitPay and PayPal.
I'll give you an example of something that I saw at BitCon 2013. A lot of those companies, they went to a traditional corporate marketing consultant and said, what do you do at a conference like this? And those marketing consultants said, you hire women in bikinis to stand at your booth and attract people and give away free pens with your
This sounds
URL
fantastic.
on them. But here's the thing, if I was interested in their product and I walked up to their booth and said, what's your product? bikini babes are like, I have no idea. What's Bitcoin? So the point is that they went with a tried and true generic strategy, right? Which means that they're not differentiating themselves. They're just sort of, I would have rather had the nerd at that booth talk to me at my level. I guess I didn't have a slide on this, maybe I should, but know your audience. Huge part of this is to know if you have a niche audience, know who they are, know what they want, know what they like. And I get nerds like women in bikinis, maybe not the women at these conferences, but I mean, as a nerd, I want to talk to another nerd, and I want to talk about the sort of like intricacies of what you're offering me. I'm not terribly interested in how pretty it is.
Yeah, it's
Right.
the authenticity.
Yeah. So I would say that these corporate videos, it's probably the same problem. It's probably that they went and looked at a Geico commercial and they said, well, this is what a corporate commercial looks like. And they just tried to rhyme with the legacy systems. And it doesn't work. It doesn't stand out because you're proposing something disruptive. I saw some other, yeah.
Yeah, so I know your first response based on what you said is going to be, it's boring, but would you mind giving me some feedback and critique and suggestions on my branded logo?
Yeah, sure. Would you have it here?
It's on the back of my shirt.
Okay. But it's cool, it's complicated, it's blue and gray. How do you pronounce this word? Microdesic, is that right? So, to Brian's point, that's not going to simplify at all. That shape is very intricate. As soon as you lower the resolution, it's going to be difficult to understand. I'm assuming that geometric form has something to do with your product. Is that true?
You know what now?
Does that shape, that geometric form, it looks like a 20-sided die.
It's a geodesic network.
Okay, so it's a symbol for network.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's not like specifically the right number of nodes or anything.
No.
So you just need a simple symbol for network. I would try to come up with a one-color, simpler symbol for network. I realize it's difficult because networks are complex, but
Right.
that's my first reaction. The R and the D, R and the M, the spiral arms,
Yeah.
those are nice. That's elegant. I'd stick with that. But I might come up with a simpler symbol. I want to catch Andreas because I know he's raised his hand a few times.
Thank you. This may be slightly off topic, but you talked about branding for companies. I want to ask you about branding for individuals. And I know this may sound like kind of narcissistic, but as individuals in this space, especially when you're a freelancer,
Yeah.
whether you like it or not, your name, your reputation is your brand.
Yeah.
Now, my brand is the dude with the unpronounceable name.
I can pronounce
Or worse. And so the point is that I have a brand as someone in this space, and I have to think about how my reputation is reflected in that. I have to put in my contract how people should spell it, because it's impossible. And I have to think about that brand. What would you say about, what are the main differences between managing a corporate brand and managing a personal brand in a space where there are a lot of freelancers, a lot of people who just work for themselves?
I think authenticity is much more important with an individual than with a company. And in that sense, I kind of want to break the rule of vector versus raster. Because photographs are always raster images. You want to get a nice high resolution, you want it to be a good photo, you want your face as your brand now, right? So to some extent you want it to be recognizable. The worst case example is realtors and personal injury attorneys. Because first off, they're all derivative of each other. They all adopt the same color schemes. It's always either black and yellow or red, white, and blue, brown and yellow for lawyers sometimes. But also their photos are totally inauthentic. They look like a cookie cutter of the next realtor or the next lawyer. Sorry, Pamela, I have an extra senior materials.
No mistaken.
That's tough, and it's funny because I struggle with this too, and I don't really know what the answer is. Davi Barker, also difficult to pronounce and spell for some people. I guess it's really all authenticity, because unless you wanted to really stick with a wardrobe, like triple black. Triple black is Brian's brand. I don't know if you guys know this.
I also changed my name because my last name is impronounceable.
That's all right.
Unique name. I would not adopt Andreas Antonopoulos. I think that actually is a phenomenal brand. I would not change the name.
Just to give you another example, Adam B. Levine.
Yeah?
He has a very distinctive visual brand as well. So he has the suspenders and the fedora, kind of
Yeah.
old-style journalist.
Jeffrey Tucker, bow
look.
ties.
Jeffrey Tucker, exactly.
Derek J, also bow ties, but yeah, the hat, it's true. I wear the Bitcoin Not Bombs brand. Most of the shirts that you'll see me in are all Bitcoin Not Bombs.
Except today.
Except today. Sometimes I, mess it up. Yeah, distinctive wardrobe. I think of like Einstein wore the same clothes every day, so he'd never have to think about it. He had to use his brain for more important things. But yeah, it's tough. Maybe we can. Maybe we should talk about this and do this at the next conference. It seems like it's its own topic.
Or at least an extension of this one. I think it's great. I think
Okay.
it's fantastic.
Sure. Yeah. Let's compare notes. Yeah.
Are you giving out copies of your presentation?
Yeah, if you guys want the file, I've got it on a USB stick, I can put it on your machine. I don't have burned copies or anything, but I'll do that.
You work for the NSA?
I do not work for the NSA and haven't been contacted by the government.
Worms.
I have a question about the. I have a question about like a very high energy looking brand, like say an explosion or something.
Yeah.
Versus like a very conservative state or something that
It's a
would
know
look
your
like a
audience
bank.
thing. It's a know your audience thing. And it's going to be picking colors. If you want high energy, you want high on the spectrum. You want yellows and oranges, navy reds as accents. But that means that you have to have an exciting product, right? Like ginger ale advertises itself differently than orange soda, right? Orange soda is inherently orange. It's always like tropical stuff, right? That's their high energy. Ginger ale is sort of like, it's my favorite soda, but it's usually advertised towards elderly men, right? Like it looks like the cans look like barrels, and and then greens and browns and grays.
Is there a risk with a high energy logo that it might look burned out after a while?
If you're a high energy company with a high energy product, you're going to want to change your logo periodically anyway. Maybe you want to stick with a color scheme that is consistent, so there's a constant, or even like if you look at Google, when Google changes their logo, it often is indistinguishable from the previous one. But if you look at the first Google logo and compare it to the one now, it is remarkably different. So gradual changes are a way to sort of keep things popping. But yeah, if you're, this is sort of a problem I have with Bitcoin Not Bombs, is our logo is constantly changing because we're trying to put numismatic value in the product. So we sort of want that Beanie Baby effect, where like you want to buy this shirt before it retires because the next one is going to have spots instead of stripes. And but it also has to be iconic. It has to be like recognizable as the same plane and the same concept all the time. And so you might want to do that. If you have a high energy product, like change it every year and have it be known that you're going to change it every year. And then release a press release describing what the changes were and why, and how those changes reflect your plan for the next year. Yeah. Oh yeah, let's get with the mic. Can we get people to go?
Many of the people in this room will be launching their first enterprise in the next year, likely around Bitcoin. This design is going to be an important part of how they launch that enterprise. Many of them will end up on Logo Tournament, Odesk, Elance, and they're going to end up with something that's completely inappropriate for what they are. This may be the only independent opportunity that these people have to ask a designer what they should get. Now, this is the question. What should they fund the development of day one? How much of their initial startup capital should they spend it? And how much should it cost?
You're asking, these are strategic questions, I don't understand. Like,
new enterprise.
How much of
funding the logo, funding a font.
How much should it cost?
New business. How much should it cost? How much should I spend of my startup capital? If I got 1,000, $1 million?
That's really interesting because I don't ever make those decisions because I'm operating outside of my clients. My clients make those decisions internally.
Great.
But I don't know, quite a bit. I take Bitcoin?
No, serious question. You have someone starting a new business. They're starting up with $50,000. So they've saved up for a few years or begged off some friends and family, or maybe they've got more. How much of that should I dedicate towards operations and how much should I dedicate towards design?
So I don't know. So I guess I can talk about jobs I've done. Your basic, so some people it's like, here's this thing I want to do, and by the way, can you design a logo and throw it on there for me? And to a job like that, I'm like, this person they don't care what their logo looks like. And so I try to do the best I can, but I spend maybe 4 hours on it, and would go through a few revisions, and maybe costs $500.
So $500 for a logo. Great.
No, I'm saying cheap. I'm saying if you want one of these 96-page marketing packages, that's hundreds of hours of work. And I'm not saying everybody needs that, but people need to at least be familiar with them and know that their company needs to answer those questions at some point. So I don't know, 10x, you call 5,000, maybe 50,000. I'm cheap as far as graphic designers go too. Like I know my dad is also a graphic designer, and like I charge $60 an hour, and he charges $350 an hour. So I don't know that he's any better than me, but.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember.
Depends on how many times they send you back to the drawing board, right?
Yeah, I mean everything's about revisions.
Wanted to give him a little insight. I in my past, have rebranded a Fortune 500 company, and we paid $1 million, ended up with the 100-page book like Visa had. So
How much was that? Maybe you just answered.
I paid $1 million
$1 million.
to an outside agency
I'll
that
do
delivered, actually delivered. Okay. Pardon?
Which agency?
Did I use? Dentsu, D-E-N-T-S-U out of New York City. And they did a really good job. But what I would advise on what his question was that first all the elements that you just outlined, as far as the things that are important for a brand. I mean, if you're a company that has $50,000 for startup, or even $100,000, you don't have to spend that money. If you have all of your brand framework things down, and then you follow your guidelines for how you can come up with the end result,
Sure.
and everybody's passionate about it, and it's
you just make
authentic.
these decisions. You can make these decisions
Yes,
yourself
yes,
too.
and it's something you can stand behind until you establish yourself, and then bring in an agency that does the whole gambit after you can afford it, and they'll make that transition for you so that it seems seamless. But that'd be my advice on that. Then I have a
That's
question.
actually really good, yeah.
Thank you.
You don't necessarily need to hire a consultant.
But do that brand framework so that everything that you come up with, you're testing against that, and everybody's in agreement.
Yeah. Like how long did Starbucks operate as Pequod?
Yeah, there you go.
They did. They conducted a business, and it worked locally because everybody knew it was a whaling town and everybody knew Moby Dick. But as soon as they like branched out and left their hometown, they realized that brand doesn't work somewhere else that isn't a whaling village. And so they consulted with someone. So, I mean, yeah, that's great advice, actually.
One of the things that I wanted to talk about is taglines, the use of taglines.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you talked about, changing your brand every year. That kind of goes against the grain of what I've done in my experience, but what we did do was change our tagline based on what our current push was or emphasis, or, if we were going from just, domestic to global, then you take a look at that, but always kept that same mark. I wonder what you think about the use of taglines.
I think they're great. I think sometimes they're too wordy. I think shorter is always better. I mean, I'm loving it as 3 words. I mean, like it's nothing. I guess I want to revisit this a little bit. I said that you want to have a purpose that the customer can adopt. And I originally wrote cause because I'm kind of a cause-y organization. Bitcoin Not Bombs has a cause. But not every organization has a cause. Most of them have a purpose. And if you look at the taglines that a lot of companies that are consumer products use, the purpose is just happiness, right? The lifestyle that McDonald's is selling when they come up with the slogans is happy people like our products, right? And that's very common. That's the purpose, and that's a purpose that everyone wants to adopt. It's just a matter of whether or not they believe the company when they're offering it. So I think slogans are great. I think that they are an embellishment. I think that your brand has to stand without it, if that makes sense. It doesn't belong on a business card, it might belong on a poster, if that makes sense. You look skeptical.
Yeah.
In terms of color and maybe even fonts, are there things that we should consider for a worldwide market? Does a North American red have a different connotation than, say, in China
That it does.
or Europe?
Yeah.
I haven't even thought about it because I avoid patriotic colors like the plague.
Well,
But yeah, I mean, if I were to go to Africa, the patriotic colors would be different. So what would I avoid? Yeah, that's a great point. It must happen that companies change their logo. Like I know, like red in China is completely different than red in the U.S. I mean, like they wear red at weddings and stuff for funerals. I forget which one. But yeah, that's a great point. I guess, that's know your audience. You know, that's like another good point just about symbolism.com is that is a general audience, but I'll bet like 99% of the people who respond to the survey are American. So do your due diligence.
Two more questions you want to pick up?
Oh yeah, I don't know, who's got questions? Let's go Stephanie.
I was just curious, you probably don't have this prepared, but I was wanting you to rip on maybe Butterfly Labs logo.
You know, it was in my presentation originally. And I took it out because I thought too many people would recognize it, you know, out of scorn.
But yeah, I mean, in the Bitcoin mining world, like what do you think are good and bad logos? Are there any good ones?
In mining? Are there mining logos? Give me some examples. So Bitcoin, or Butterfly Labs looks like a butterfly and it's clever. It doesn't have Bitcoin in the name, which I like.
KNC miner, which is basically just their letters, I think.
I've never seen this logo. I've never been into mining, so I don't know these logos.
Cloud hashing.
It's a cloud, right? It's like an orange with a white cloud on it. Yeah.
Well, just rip on Butterfly Labs.
Just rip on Butterfly. It's confusing. It's a Mobius strip. I mean, I think that in general, what does a butterfly have to do with mining? I don't know. It's flippant, it transforms. It's kind of, maybe it's their mission.
Turn your Bitcoins into their money.
Yeah, last question in the back. Can we go
Bitcoin began as something that's incredibly niche, and the people who were interested in it like to see themselves as niche and different and unique.
Right.
People who have great beginning investment in that world liked it because it was an alternative. In terms of branding and logo and how you manage your companies, because a lot of people here obviously run small businesses, how do you think and what is a good way for a business to translate themselves into a world that doesn't care about Bitcoin, doesn't know about it, and isn't interested?
So, in marketing, they call this ultimate mission or an ultimate purpose statement, ultimate function statement. I don't remember, but it'll be clearer if you just know what it is. So, if you look at the marketing for Zoom, it was like it's you know, it has this much memory, it has this much speed, it has this many features, and this many buttons, and this was the marketing. And then Apple comes out with the iPod and said, it's your entire music library in your pocket, right? Like that's the better marketing because the end user doesn't care about the memory and the speed and the buttons and the functions. The end user cares about what is ultimately valuable to them, which is that it's a transformative experience to have your entire music collection in your pocket, right? So a lot of us right now are very concerned with hash power and very concerned with these very technical aspects that are not relevant to the general audience. And so the question is, what is relevant to the general audience? What is the ultimate thing that you're offering? It is not the product you're offering, but it is the experience or the lifestyle that you're offering to your customer if you're going for a general audience, right? So like we've been using Bitcoin as a force for good in the world, which is admittedly derivative from the Air Force's slogan, but you know, we're a plane. And that's because, you know, if people, when we go and we want to talk about Bitcoin, we want to talk about the optimistic, the peaceful, the voluntary future that is possible by implementing it in certain ways. That's what we see in it, that's why it's valuable to us, that's what we say to our customers. You know, it's a force for good in the world. So it's kind of a slogan, and maybe this is sort of like that, but yeah, you want to find what is, so what if it's something like, send $10 million internationally in an instant with no government forms, right? That's one feature. It's just one feature. It's not a technological feature, but to some people that's incredibly valuable. In fact, that's mind-blowing that that's possible. So it's half knowing your audience and half, it's like distilling the deeper purpose, like beyond the technological aspects, but what is possible that you're offering. Does that help? I feel like I'm sort of floundering. Yeah, okay, good.
Last question.
Last question.
Sure, so I'm Charlie with a company called Bitcoin Shop. There's a very straightforward name. We're an e-commerce site.
Okay.
But we've done a bunch of things kind of beyond just the shopping part with our business. And we are an investor in ExpressCoin. We like the fact, you know, that I like that kind of logo evolution. And we've invested in 4 or 5 companies. So part of the audience is not just the consumer, like with BitPay or GoCoin. Their audience is a merchant, right? So I like that piece as well. I thought that Gem, which used to be BitVault, if you guys saw that recently, they kind of rebranded, and that completely different scope. They actually use a full color logo with an emerald or a ruby or something. And they're like, hey, we're going to be multi-sig wallet plus some APIs.
Okay.
So from that perspective, there we go. I'll just say in our experience, there are more designers and graphic folks that are moving into kind of the app side because it's becoming more evolutionary. And it's part of the attractiveness. So when I think of startups that I've advised, and your experience trying to rebrand $1 million, don't go too short. I agree with you. You need to spend some money on, because if you're going to grow the business, and let's say you have to take venture money or other type, someone's going to ask you to spend money at some point to kind of focus your brand and kind of get it together. Because to scale it, you're going to put it in front of investors, consumers, and a couple of other people. So it's not necessarily a question. I'm just saying from our perspective, it does mean something to us as a company like ours. Looks at deal after deal after deal as well. And also we're a consumer-facing company, so we need to have something that means something to consumers outside of just a Bitcoin brand. So.
Hi, Davi. I missed the question.
No, I was saying it wasn't necessarily a question. I was saying, I was asking, did you?
Then I agree.
Did you like maybe sum up by the gem? Did you see the gem rebranded?
I haven't seen the rebranded
That
one.
was
Check it
great.
out.
That was a great.
I always love
seeing
seeing
comment on that one because it was full color. They did like full color, like spectrum of color.
Okay.
So if you didn't see it, that was going to be my question: is what do you think of that one? So, anyway,
we'll do
sorry.
that.
Great presentation. I'm a chief marketing guy, so love the presentation.
Thank you so much. All right, thanks, guys.